everyone, and welcome to our first show of the year. Not in February, but we've been a bit busy and just sort of made excuses for it. So, Happy New Year, even though it's a month late. Today, we're joined obviously by Mark and Liam, who are part of the team, and then Justin and Jake. Maybe one or two joining, but we'll get going. We'll start with last year. So we're going to go around and each person can grade it and then give like 30 seconds to a minute of explanation what you want to, like, why you've graded that. So start with Mark.
Okay. So when you say grades, what we saying? Are we saying are we grading players here?
Or no, just grading the whole season, as in like we finished 7 and 10 and then.
Sure. So I think I think B plus, considering I think it's fair, considering the kind of hurdles we had to get over. So I think we all knew it was Terry and Arthur's first season, so that had its challenges. Calvin not being there for half a season was a big hurdle for me as well. We had some kind of little surprises in Cordarrelle Patterson. I think Pitts had a really good year. So I think given the challenges and the fact that we ended as strongly as we did, a lot more wins than last season, I'll go B plus.
Fair shout. Justin?
Yeah, I'd say very similar, probably a solid B. I mean, you look at they almost doubled their win total from a year before. Granted, they did it in one extra game. But like you said, you saw a lot of guys make progress. You saw surprises like Cordarrelle Patterson. You saw A.J. Terrell really developing. But you also saw a lot of the same question marks they entered the year, right? Offensive line, defensive line. So a lot of the same questions. But it seems like they're on a path. It seems like they're on, a path that they're happy about. And they stayed in the division race up until the last few weeks of the season. And I don't think a lot of folks were expecting that. So they kept it interesting. They kept relevant in the year, and they're still going to end up with a top 10 draft pick to kind of keep building, keep going along that path.
Fair enough. Liam?
Yeah, probably B. I think it'd be highest I probably would give. I think it's one of them where depends if you're giving it a grade, based on the season or against obviously the expectations and things like that. I think obviously B sounds quite high when you think about how much better we could have been, but obviously you set it against the expectations. I'd probably say a B. I mean, I didn't quite expect some players to be as good as they were, but I also probably expected some other players to be slightly better or there in the case of Ridley. I think we've got still obviously a lot of areas to improve on, and it's still we're in a tough position to improve. But in terms of compared to last season, the coaching and the progression throughout the season, the mentality was the main thing for me. That just looks a lot better than previous seasons. We look like we could actually shut out a game when we needed to and things like that, which is a big change for us. So pack it with a bit of talent. I think we could do well with these guys.
And Jake, is it another B?
I'll scale it down a little bit. I'll go with a B minus. It's kind of weird because we knew this was going to be an evaluation year. Not a lot of big swings in free agency. The draft, they kind of looks like they targeted guys that they thought might be ready sooner. A lot of seniors, team captains, things like that, trying to establish a culture. And I think that's fine. That's not really that big of an issue for me. I think the main thing, this free agency in this draft is going to tell us a lot, because if this free agency in this draft looks a lot like the last one, I think they're going to be in trouble. But I do think they take a couple more big swings than they did last offseason.
Definitely. Just joined by Will, so I'll ask the same question. We're just doing grading the season from last year, and then just grade it and then give a little explanation why you've graded it at that.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually predicted that they would go 7 and 10 before the year, and it wasn't by a game basis. I just kind of felt like a 7 and 10 team to me. But I weirdly think that even being as pessimistic maybe, and your mileage may vary as to whether or not 7 and 10 is pessimistic, but I think that they performed a little bit better than I was maybe anticipating. I certainly didn't think that they would flip their identity and start winning some close games late like that. That was a massive turnaround. So I think, to give a grade on it, it's somewhere between a B- and a C+, I think.
Value to investors.
So I think that if you want to put some rose-colored glasses on it, a B-, is fair. I think a C+, if you want to be a little bit negative, then you can go one way or the other there. But defensively, they clearly have to figure some things out. I think you saw some really nice improvements from guys like AJ Terrell and Foye Oluokun, who seemingly can become future pieces for this defense. Offensively, I trust them maybe to play to their design a little bit more. I think we could see a bigger change on the defensive side of the ball because it felt like they maybe didn't have the personnel there that they really wanted to. So the upside is on the defensive side of the ball. I think offensively it could take a little bit longer to maybe figure everything out, but I think the floor is going to be always higher on the offensive side of the ball, at least while Matt Ryan is around. So it was a little bit better than what I was expecting. Still not great.
So I think everyone was quite similar grading, which is obviously quite good. We're all not too pessimistic, etc. But
turns out I'm the biggest optimist again, yeah?
the big plus. But no, overall, I think mine would probably be similar. Finished with 7 wins. It was 3 more wins than last year. We've seen improvements. I'd say definitely with a worse roster. I know the schedule wasn't as hard, but you can only beat what teams sort of in front of you at the time. There's a few positives to take into the next season, definitely. But we'll go on to free agency because this is going to be a massive free agency for us. I was looking at players that we've Young Ho Koo, who I thought was still under contract, but he's not. So you got Patterson, who's literally trying to beg to get a contract on Twitter. There's a few other players, but start with Mark. I don't know, what. There's a few players that obviously everyone wants Koo to resign and Patterson. But is there any other players that you would resign? Like maybe Oliver? Would you give him one of them cheap contracts?
I think that depends what they want. I think that depends what they want to do in the draft. So I won't go too much into draft, but this is quite a rare defensive heavy draft. I've seen a couple of mocks erring towards kind of like Sauce Gardner, who's another cornerback. It's whether you take that chance on him. So really, is Oliver, is Oliver gonna factor in that discussion? I don't know. Again, I think it just kind of depends at the right price. There are a couple of free agents that I think might be worth a shot. I don't know what his injury status is, but one of the ones that I was looking at before the end of the season, I think Michael Gallup is a free agent this season. I don't know whether you kind of offer him a WR1 spot and kind of hopefully it wouldn't. I can't imagine it would be that expensive, but he was kind of one of the ones early doors that I thought, well, look, if we've got such a defensive rich draft and we need it, and there's still some weapons on O-line there that you could potentially take kind of first, second, third round. Do you want to waste that on a wide receiver? I don't know. I think that's probably a bigger question, but I think that was the one that I would be kind of most happy with. That might be cap friendly. So I'll hand over to Justin now to maybe tell me I'm wrong, but that's my view.
I would never dream of doing that, Mark. Never tell you. No, I think there's a whole lot of questions, and it's a really long list, right? I mean, you can add on there Foye Oluokun, who's the led the entire NFL in tackles. I mean, how would you feel about Michael Walker stepping into that role, a guy who was super, super productive, that being Foye this year? It's not a premium position where he's, that job doesn't always command the the mega deals, but it's going to cost a lot more than it did this past year to keep him around. You're just talking about wide receiver. You got Russell Gage, who's going to be a free agent, who right now, pending obviously what happens with Calvin Ridley, is your number one returning wide receiver, unless you want to count Cordero Patterson, right? So what are you going to do with Russell Gage? Again, a guy who maybe is not going to go out and break the bank, but the Falcons' salary cap situation is not great. Cordero Patterson was the entire offense last year, or most of it. So he obviously wants to be back. So there's a big question there. And then there's also Grady Jarrett, who still has time left on his contract, but could be in line for an extension, which actually could, in a way, provide some salary cap relief. But that is something that, if you're the Falcons, if this is a guy you want to build around on the defensive line, you might want to take care of sooner than later. You do have the franchise tag kind of as a back pocket option for both Foye as well as Grady Jarrett, maybe down the line. But with the Falcons' kind of tight salary cap situation, it's not as valuable a wild card as it might be for other teams. So a lot of internal questions, guys, that they have to decide whether or not they're going to bring back and how much to spend on it before even looking elsewhere. So I think the real key is, number one, those decisions, and number two, what Terry Fontenot did last year is finding the right bargain-ish veterans to come in and fill those gaps, like Eric Harris, a guy that did a Cordero Patterson, a guy they didn't have to pay a ton of money to, and kind of came in and overperformed that deal. So that's a really big ask, but that's also Terry Fontenot's background is in pro personnel and pro scouting. So they're going to ask him or he's going to ask himself, I guess, to do that again if they want to have success.
Jake, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think another really interesting guy is going to be Fabian Moreau. I don't think he really played as bad as, maybe Twitter would have you think. I mean, it just feels like whoever the number 2 corner on the Falcons then is just destined for scorn from the fan base. Isaiah Oliver was that guy for a long time. And I think they should really consider bringing back Moreau and Oliver, even if they take a cornerback 8th overall, because, I mean, in today's NFL, you can never have enough. Oliver he seemed like he kind of had his role like Dean Pease has that nickel guy. He did it with Logan Ryan for a long time, and he was playing well before he got hurt. And I think Fabian Moreau is fine to have around. They need to get deep at corner, especially if the pass rush isn't going to be fixed overnight. And so I think both of those guys should be priorities.
Liam?
Yeah, I think I would probably agree. Certainly with Oliver, when he was in that position, he did show improvement. I mean, the season before, I absolutely slated him. So I can't believe I'm saying this. It was week 2.
I don't think you can name a person who didn't slate him.
I was pretty relentless, but yeah, he did show improvement. He's probably worth keeping, I would imagine. Moreau, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's one of them. He can be a playmaker, but it's inconsistency. But I mean, sometimes that's okay. Like, wild play and things. That as long as you make some good plays with the bad players, I suppose you're doing all right. Yeah, I think they're the main guys, like in terms of defense that I'd be looking at. And then obviously the offense is probably a bigger factor with Patterson. Whatever happening with Ridley, I think. Well, is Lee Smith retired now? Is he? And Hurst is going with Zoom, so he probably wants another tight end in there, I would imagine, just because of his background and his previous style. Like obviously, the Titans, he does like that sort of 2 tight end look and using them in different ways. So I imagine we're going to be targeting one of those. I don't know whether that'd be in the draft or in free agency. I suppose it depends on who's about. But there'd be the positions that I'd be looking. Obviously, Q then would be somebody that you just tend to re-sign, and kickers. You can go out and get a kicker for whatever money. He's not going to break the bank no matter how much you pay him. So, if he's showing that consistency, we've seen how many games are won and lost on the kicks nowadays. There's so many game-winning kicks this year that it was incredible. What was it? The Packers Bengals. Was it the Packers Bengals that I was watching? That was it. That was about however many missed kicks it was. It shows what a kicker can do, for the money that they get. So yeah, somebody like that would be certainly quite high on my agenda. And then in terms of bringing players in, I think I might be wrong, but I think is Christian Kirk a free agent this year? he's a little bit, not, I won't say out of favour at the Cardinals, but obviously there's guys ahead of him, bigger names and everything, so he might fancy a move. He's got quite a bit about him, so he'd be somebody I'd be potentially looking at, because I don't think he would be another one that would cost us a whole lot for a receiver position. But then obviously the draft is another question there with the same with receivers. It shows, you know, every team that took us sort of the top receivers in last year's class, shows what impact, you know, if you go and get a guy like Chase, for example, it shows what impact that can have on a team. It's completely obliterated the league. So, you know, it does depend on what we do elsewhere, and obviously the money situation and all sorts of different things. But like Justin said, I think the key to our season is those bargain guys. We can't go out and get these big names. I'd love to see JC Jackson, as you know, is my favorite corner in the league, but he's looking at like top 2, 3, 4 corners in the league in terms of his ability, and he's going to demand an absolute fortune. So they're not really realistic. So I think we have to find the best bargains and hope for the best again a little bit and build with the draft. I think it's going to be our best option.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you look at the list of free agents that the Falcons have, just their own free agents. I mean, it's an interesting opportunity, and I think we'll really see what Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith's vision is for this team, because they can kind of part ways with a lot of guys that we would have coming into last year been like, yeah, these are key foundational pieces probably for the future of this team. Guys like Russell Gage, guys like Foye, Younghoe Koo, like all of these players who have been the best players, frankly, for this team kind of over the last 1.5, 2 seasons. They could just walk away from them if they want to and really kind of pivot in a whole new direction. But I think back to when Terry Fontenot was first hired, one of the key things that he said was you seek to address your needs in free agency because you've got a better one-to-one comparison of seeing how a player performs against the guys that you're going to expect him to perform against. There's no projecting there, or at least there's minimal projecting. Hell, we see a team in the Super Bowl right now that has pretty much just thumbed its nose up at the draft entirely and just go get the guys that have proven that they can do it. And now they're in the Super Bowl. So I think that's an interesting approach. And then it pairs nicely with what we've heard from Terry about the draft, which is best player available approach. You know, it kind of, we've already addressed our needs. We did that in free agency. So the big question is, when you look at the free agents that you could potentially lose, how do you minimize holes that are going to open up? You know, I think that should be their approach, given the financial limitations that they have, is let's not create any new holes. I think losing somebody like Russell Gage creates a hole. Like, there already, frankly, is a hole there at wide receiver. There's a couple. So they need to go get some guys. You don't want to necessarily let a good young player who you've invested a lot in developing walk away. But then you could sit here and look at maybe a Duron Harmon or an Eric Harris. I don't know if they're priority guys that you want to bring back. They were awesome to have here for 1 year, but you already now have a logjam at that position and a natural ascension in a guy like Richie Grant or Jalen Hawkins to kind of move in and fill that role. That's where Cordero Patterson is such an interesting kind of guy to talk about here, because clearly he wants to be back. Clearly Falcons fans want him to be back. I don't know if I'm sold on that just being a certainty. And it kind of sounded like Terry Fontenot said, like he was surprised at everybody wanting him to come back, which is, he's just playing the game there. But, you know, does it make sense to break the bank at that position? Probably not. And so that, like, it's getting a lot of talk, and it is brought up like he's just a shoo-in to come back. I don't know if that's, you know, they could work something out, obviously, and it would behoove both parties. But Cordero Patterson could also go land his giant paycheck that he's kind of been wanting. We assume, you know, we don't know what actually the market is going to look like for him at this point. I'm not really answering the guys who I want to have brought up, because I agree with everybody else. So this was more of just like a philosophical, like, how are the Falcons maybe looking to approach this? And I think it makes a lot of sense. You don't open up any new holes. You try to bring back the guys that you do think can do the things that you want to. But there's also a unique opportunity here to really kind of pivot and change a lot of this roster with minimal penalties. And to Justin's point, like, that's something Terry Fontenot has a background in doing, and going to get guys like Demario Davis and going to get these free agents that other teams have overlooked, bring them in here and having them, you know, he's already done that once so far. He's 1 for 1 with Cordero Patterson. So, I mean, I trust him to do that, but I don't know. It'll be either a lot of outside spending if they choose to let a lot of their guys go, then things really heat up. but there's a chance that it's just a lot of re-signing their guys and maybe 4 or 5 notable additions of maybe mid-range value in free agency.
So, Carl, just before you come in, so just I'm not asking anyone to comment on it, but like I'm just having a little look at a list of free agents. So, whereas I said about wide receiver, you got Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, you got Will Fuller, Crowder, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, who hasn't exactly set the world on fire. Emmanuel Sanders, AJ Green, tight end. Now you got Gronk. You got Uzoma. You got Eric Ebron. You got T.Y. Hilton, the wide receiver. Like there are people available, which I mean, I know I've thrown a lot of silly names out there, and I understand that, but I think like Will and Justin alluded to, there's if there's team friendly deals to be done there, then there's things on the market, so some interesting ones.
Yeah, and I've talked about this at length, but I think the most important thing this offseason as far as the pass rush goes is I think they need to get a couple of respectable guys before they try and go swing at a Dante Fowler or somebody like that. There's guys like Arden Key, Lorenzo Carter, DeMarcus Walker was another name. And then, maybe you spend a little bit on a Derek Barnett. But I think having that rotation before you just go and say, oh, Dante Fowler's going to fix everything. It obviously hasn't worked to this point. And, if they do decide to draft somebody at 8 that's an edge rusher, well, there's your guy. And you have a solid supporting cast behind him. And I think that's more important than anything. I take the exact opposite approach with the offensive line. If you're going to go get an offensive lineman, get a good one. Instead, I'll never forget, I wanted Roger Saffold so bad before he went to the Titans, and instead we got Jamon Brown and James Carpenter. So I would rather have one good offensive lineman than 2 not good ones. So I take the opposite approach on that, but that's at least my philosophy going into it.
That's one thing I was going to mention. Like, I think with the offensive line, I think it'll be free agency where we target it compared to the draft was been like last year, the year before, etc. I think we definitely need some vets on that line.
Solid vet.
It definitely is improving. One thing, like Lindstrom was like very good all the way through the year, but it's like he still didn't get the respect he deserved at all from other fans who obviously might not notice it as much, but I think he didn't give any sacks up, and he's basically protecting 2 players when McGarry's not really doing much. So I just had to put that in there. I think he just deserved a lot more respect than he had.
I suppose kind of to Jake's point, really, I think what we've got is if you've got somebody who's kind of already performing with a really, really bad backup cast, that's where, like you've got one solid-ish piece. Like, and I think you're right, Carl. I do feel like a strong vet's the way to go with that. If we are going to throw some money at somebody, I think that feels like it was seen as obviously Matt's for another year, regardless. You need to give this man a chance to not be on his rump as much as he was again this year. So yeah, I agree.
And I think it's even for the future as well. Like if Matt's here for a year and then we go on to draft a quarterback next year, we still need an offensive line to protect the rookie that's going to come in the next year or so. So
yeah. Okay, cool.
Are we going to mention, like, I think I might have, right, Brady's retired, and I just want Matt to just I loved it on Twitter, so I think he's just
okay. Yes, Brady's retired. I think first of all I want to say I was quite high on, as you guys well know, because I came on here and said it, I was quite high on Kyle Trask I know Liam wasn't, and Liam and I can continue to argue it.
You just mean you was quite high, Mark, when you was watching him. Is that what it was?
So I think that he has a potential ceiling that is higher than people give him credit for. I may well be wrong on that one. But a lot of that Bucks team, from what I can tell, so Sue is now a free agent, Godwin's a free agent, that Gronk's a free agent, so that team's likely to get broken up, right? So it's automatically not going to be as good as it can be. I don't think it's going to be as bad, because if they do go with Trask, I think they've got a young quarterback there who knows how to sling the ball. That's my opinion, and this is the hill I will die on. Do I think that we will be better than them? Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and you know me, I'm you get me on here because I'm the optimist out of us all. So yeah. So yes, do I think we're going to be better than the Bucks? Yeah, I do. The Saints. So can we all just take a moment to bask in the glory of the wonderful, wonderful state that our friends down the road in New Orleans are in? 70 million cap debt. They've got no quarterback. They've got no running back now because he's in jail, and they've now got and their wide receiver can't do anything apart from run 20 yards, right? So let's and they've got no head coach as well. Yeah, of course. So that's it. Are we going to be better than them? Of course we are, because they're going to be fire sailing it, because otherwise the cap situation, what is it, 70 million? Yeah, come on, right? Let's all be honest here. The Saints are dead and buried for a good couple of years yet. And finally, you got the Panthers. Now, I do think the Panthers might well, they have to be better this year because they were awful last year. But whether they stick with Darnold, I don't know. I think Cam will probably get the bullet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they bring back someone like Teddy Bridgewater, because I can't really see them drafting a quarterback, but I might be wrong. I think they kind of went around their rebuild wrong and made some bad decisions. But do I think we're better than them? Yeah, I think we are. If we keep the faith in Terry and Arthur and we continue to improve, I think we win our division this year. And I'll go so far as to say that I think we win it comfortably. Whether we'll get anywhere in the playoffs is another matter entirely. But there you go. There's my hot take. And I can't wait to go back to the show and clip it just for the New Orleans bit, so we can post that on Twitter and wind up all of our friends in the black and gold. So there you go. But I'll pass on to Justin for the next comment on that.
Yeah, calling it. No, I like it. Let's record this one. Hey guys, I'm actually gonna have to bounce after this for a moment. Got to run over to the Atlanta Hawks tonight. Got coming up on their trade deadline, so in a couple days for that. But I hear the optimism. I think it's possible. I mean, I think the division, as you look at it right now, is pretty wide open, right? I don't think maybe the Bucks and Saints are in quite as dire straits yet as you're talking about. You still have like a lot of pieces on those teams that are pretty compelling. I mean, you look at the Bucks and the problems that the Falcons are still trying to solve in terms of the lines of scrimmage, protecting the court. They're still going to have a lot, offensive and defensive lines that they're bringing back. But yeah, I think it can be a wide open division. The question, I think you hit it on the head, Mark, is the difference between contending for the division in the playoffs and contending for a Super Bowl, Yeah. And that's okay. It's not going to happen overnight. Not everybody is
Justin.
Yeah, right. but you know what? Not everybody is the Bengals. They went 2 years ago or whatever it was. They had the number one pick and now they're in the Super Bowl. So it certainly can be done. But yeah, you look at the division right now, it's going to look an awful lot different without Sean Payton. It'll be interesting to see which way Tampa goes. Hey, I appreciate the Kyle Trask love. Any Gator fandom on here, I'm all for it. Or do they go out and try to get, Jimmy Garoppolo, something like that? Maybe a guy who's not quite Tom Brady, but still a veteran that they can drop in there and try to keep the ball rolling. So it's going to be, one of the most wide open divisions in football, I think, going into the year. Maybe not one of the best ones, but hey, nobody was picking the Bengals this time last year. So it should be interesting. But I got to hop off, y'all. Look forward to doing this again soon. Appreciate you having me as always.
Thanks, Justin.
Bye.
I do have to run after this as well. I got class at 2:30 our time, but I will say, I talked about this a bit on Twitter. I kind of wanted the Falcons to hit the reset button this offseason. I was like, I was even open to trading Matt Ryan as well if the return was right. Say Pittsburgh calls you up and says, hey, pick 20. Do you eat that money? I think you at least have to think about it. And now no Tom Brady, no Sean Payton. Matt Rule is still in Carolina. I mean, there's pride to win in the division. I understand, draft status, rebuild, hanging on to something for too long. There's pride in winning the division. I understand there's ultimately one goal, and I don't think the Falcons are a Super Bowl team as constructed. But, like Justin said, you really never know. If they nail free agency and they nail the draft, which is exactly what the Bengals did, which the Bengals have Joe Burrow, but, that's beside the point. Stranger things have happened. And I don't think going in this year is a terrible idea. I mean, you can really just ride Matt Ryan till the wheels fall off. That's not, I mean, there's worse franchises around doing dumber things than that. But it's about them making a decision. They got to make a decision this offseason. Are you going to rebuild or are you going to go in? You got to do one or the other. You can't have this middle ground that you had this year, I think, really. And before I do hop off, I had a future bet on the Rams to win the Super Bowl, 120 plus 1,200 to start the season. So I'm really hoping to cash that. And of course, I'm a Georgia fan, so I'm pulling for my boy Matt Stafford. But if the Bengals win, I think it'll be really cool. So I no hate towards the Bengals. I'll be happy if they win.
I have got a sneaky feeling they might do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, team of destiny. It feels like it, man. All right, fellas. Great as always. Great talking to you.
Cheers, Jake.
Go on, Liam. What's your view on the division?
Yeah, I mean, I would have before all this craziness happened with like Brady and Payton and everything. Obviously, I would have just said that we're more of a rebuild than a go for it type, just because I didn't think we'd be competitive at the right time. Mainly because I thought teams would just consistently be better than us. But now I'm not as sure, just because of the things obviously that have happened. I think it's taken them all down a little bit of a peg, hasn't it, really? So we're right back in there now in terms of how competitive we are. And, if we win the division, obviously get to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm not saying that we could be a major threat, but the playoffs are the playoffs, aren't they? It's one game at a time. Anything can happen. You don't have to win that many games to get there and to get to the Super Bowl and win it. Realistically, you can do it. The Bengals obviously scraped by a couple of times, haven't they? I won't say the Rams have set anything alight in the playoffs, but they've obviously been good enough to get to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, we do something. We could throw at it this season.
I don't know what your thoughts are, but like the way that we've been thinking for the past couple of years, right, is 2023. All of the cap situation is gone, right? All of the bad deals, the big money, the dead money, it's all gone. So we go into this year and somehow go, right, okay, rely on Terry to piece things together. They've obviously got a longer term plan because everyone has to these days. Even if you go for any job, you've got to have a long term plan of what you're going to do. So in reality, right, we go into next year, we win the division. Whether we get anywhere in the playoffs doesn't really matter, right? So you end up with maybe 20th pick, something like that, something in and around that. So you end up with that 20th pick, and all of a sudden, that next year after winning the division, you also have no money problems. Now, yes, okay, you've then got the prospect of going, well, actually, it's probably at that time we need a QB. So that that's in its own question mark. But again, I kind of hope that next year's draft there's going to be better QB prospects than what there is this year.
Yeah,
because I think you've probably only got 2-3 max, and two out of those 3 are questionable. Going in the first round this year. So, I don't know. It kind of feels like to me, if we win our division this year, and then next year Terry and Arthur can actually start building around what they want to build now that they've got some money to spend, it feels like a bit of a perfect scenario, right?
Yeah, I think I think it could really work out well for us in the end. I think in terms of the money situation, it's going to get a lot better than it has been. I was afraid that we would be just beaten to a pulp for a couple of seasons and not actually be competitive. Though we were still in it towards the end this year, which I didn't really anticipate, and I think we'll still be in it at the end next year and might even win the division. So, I think it's probably a little bit more entertaining than I anticipated it was going to be for a couple of years. I thought we were just going to like on, not again, but we're still there. And then we'll say if the money situation gets a lot better, which it will, not to say that, that actually sort of helps. Like I always say, I'd rather, although obviously having the cap space and things available is good, but I'd always rather have the players already than have the money to spend, if you know what I mean. Like, like the Jets and obviously how bad they've been with plenty of capital. Bengals were terrible for a long time, so they eventually got it right, but they've really done it through the draft, not through free agency as such. A lot of teams have had a lot of money to spend and spent it and failed. But
like the Jaguars, don't they have like 60 million plus this year?
Yeah, they've had quite a lot of money to spend for a while. And
got a high draft pick again. But it depends if they do something with it. That's the problem, isn't it? You've got to...
you can do it. I mean, it's better to have some available. If you want the right balance, so you want good enough pieces on the field already under contracts, and then you want enough money enough wiggle room to do the rest. That's kind of the ideal situation. There's no point of having 100 million to spend on players if what you're adding to is already trash.
Yeah,
but I don't think we're going to be there.
I suppose to Carl's point. And to yours as well, Jags have had. I'm not bad mouthing the Jags. I mean, I'm sure most Jags fans will bad mouth the Jags anyway. So I don't feel too bad, but they've had money to spend for years, and they haven't done anything with it. All right, okay. Well, I mean, Bengals and Jets, another great kind of mirror image. Like they've had money, they've had picks. Bengals have done something with it. Now, it just kind of feels to me we've seen Arthur kind of go like he's not shy to put his hand in his pocket. I mean, he's not Jerry Jones, do you know what I mean? But he's not shy to put his hand in his pocket and get the right players to get us to where he obviously wants us to go. So I don't know. I just kind of feel like, especially after the past couple of years, it'll be a case of look, both Terry and Arthur here to win, so let's go win. So I don't know. I mean, again, it might just be because I'm completely, utterly, totally, and blindly optimistic. But I don't know. I think we've got a good couple of years coming up. It's exciting, and we all sat down at the beginning of last season and said, look, we just want to see improvement. We've seen it. Yeah, okay. Like Carl said, it was a bit of an easier schedule, but then again, fucking the Jags beat the Bills. It's
I think we got with I think in terms of what's more likely to happen. I think with Ryan, I don't think Ryan's going to. He might not be quite as good. If you get older, you do turn down. You could slide a little bit, but there's no signs of him completely dropping off a cliff next season that I can see. I think we'll be absolutely fine. Which for me, there's always more. There's always more potential in your team if you've got a quarterback who can do the business than drafting somebody. If we were going into this season with a rookie quarterback, I'd be less confident than I would be with Ryan. At least we know he's very, very likely going to do the job, which is.
Or are we getting Kyler?
We are no. Where is? We are gonna rock Ryan until his legs fall off. I think.
Well, I mean, again, it's one of them, and you would think that the way that we go would be to draft a quarterback while Ryan's still here. But when really, there's nothing that really excites me QB wise in this draft. So do we get to next year and just say, well, look, we're going to draft a QB, but we want you to stay on to mentor him and do that. And I don't know. I mean, the guy spent his whole career with us. He's probably unlikely to go anywhere else. does that not feel right? I mean, I heard Malik Willis this week saying how he, modeled his game on Matt Ryan, and you kind of go, well, this guy's obviously more. I think we forget as Falcons fans, and we're around so many people who slate Matt Ryan to the ends of the earth, and you kind of go, well, actually, there's young lads out there who are looking at Matt Ryan's game, going, I want to be like this guy. And like I said, I think we get ourselves into a mindset sometimes where it's like we almost kind of underestimate the impact he's had on the game.
Well, you think you heard last year? I can't remember. A couple of coaches, can't remember. A couple of coaches came out. Or Smith said it as well, but a couple more. Everyone knows what Matt Ryan's like. It's only the fans that sort of slaughter it. Like other coaches in the NFL a lot of them would take him this off season without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
And it's obviously just a respect thing. This fan base is great at times, but sometimes they take.
I suppose what I'd hate to see because I mean it will happen with age, but I'd hate to see him regress to a point where you see him with Big Ben this season, where even Steelers fans, who've kind of relied on that dude to do everything for years, and they all kind of just went, he's finished. Yeah. He's completely finished. But they had nothing behind him, really. They had nothing to. There was no point in benching him because Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins were pissing against the wind. So it's a tough one, isn't it? Because that's what I don't want to see happen to Matt Ryan. I would actually rather he goes somewhere after us for a year to prove he can still do it, rather than staying around to just be abused behind a really, really weak O-line that we still got. Yeah, like the boys have said tonight, I think it's we've kind of we have seen Terry and Arthur bring us a little bit of progress. So, if they make some decisions that we question, well, we questioned a couple last year.
Exactly. Yeah, we did. We definitely did.
I think this year's draft is like last year's draft was best player available sort of every round, kind of. I think this year, obviously, I think it'd be more different. I think it will be different this year, but I think like Richie Grant, obviously, this year coming, he's a player that has to step up. He's a second rounder. Our last second rounders have been pretty shit, probably. But I think there's a few people question like the draft from last year, but I think about the year before, really. Like I think Hawkins came on all right from the year before.
But Carl, I think us as UK fans, and I've only kind of got to know this since I've started playing the game. But I think what we need to kind of remember is what we did is we drafted a lot of rookies and then thrust them all in, and just expected them to be good and work in the system, etc., etc. And that it doesn't necessarily work like that. Like I feel really sorry for that lad. Oh God, Jalen Mayfield. I feel sorry for him because he had the biggest baptism of fire. That doesn't mean he's not going to come back next year and learn his lessons and be better. Now, yes, we've seen the likes of oh my God, my name the other O-lineman that we drafted the year before, Thomas Demetriou.
McGarry,
yeah.
Giraffe on ice.
He hasn't come on. But draft picks are like that. Look at Tack. Look at Brown. They're all they're all draft picks that didn't work out. Some draft picks did. And people go, oh well, you could have took TJ Watt before Tack McKinley.
You say that about a lot. That's the problem.
And I think that's the thing is until they're at the end of their rookie deal and we can kind of evaluate what they're like after that. It's difficult, isn't it? It really, really is. I think we're so unfair because we're all UK fans, and when you don't remember that there might be some studs in the NFL that didn't have a great rookie year. You know, Frank Darby might come back next year and
rip the shit out of everyone.
Well, you never know, right? And that's why I'm kind of I haven't seen enough of the kid this year to warrant it. So, you know, I hope he does because he seems like a wonderful chap. But you know, we've got to. That's kind of where we've got to go with it. Is that right? Okay, let's just trust in the process. I think that's where I'm going into next season. I'm trusting in the process and I'm basking in the Saints' misery. That's what I'm doing. It's a marvelous place to be.
The thing is, they came in with absolutely no cap space at all. Last year it went down and people didn't expect it to go down as much. People expected it to stay the same. So that was it went down by 15 million or so, which is quite a bit, I think. So it's gone up by, I don't know, it's like 30 odd million, but we'll obviously got a few signings to make. But even this year, we've still not got much cap. Next year, you're looking at quite a bit more capping than the year after as well.
Well, I mean, next year is home free. Like all of the Julio, the Desmond Trufant, all of those kind of, you know, 5-6 millions here and there. And this is what people forget. You know, that dead money, which we took the hit on, and we're continuing to take the hit on to get these morons out of our establishments. You know, like, and I'm sorry, but like, you know, Julio didn't play. How many games did he play? Like 5-6 games with the Titans that season. He told us he was leaving because he wanted to win. And you know, like, I will continue to say this. You know, Matt Ryan elevates people. You never heard of Austin Hooper since he went to the Browns, and he was one of the highest. He was one of the highest paid tight ends ever when he left. Not a sausage.
Yeah, he's got an imbecile throwing to him, hasn't he?
Huh?
He's got an imbecile throwing to him.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's fair enough. But you know, I mean, Julio, one of the best receivers in NFL history, wanted to trade Matt Ryan for Tannehill, and yeah, okay, do you know what it is? I mean, the number one seed going out in the first playoff, like, come on, like let's be real about what it is. So I don't know. I mean, I think we've got many reasons to be happy right now. Just got to try and block out the negativity. That's what I do anyway.
I want to mention Ridley quickly. Obviously, his mental health side is everyone else hopes the same thing, like he's back to his best, etc. Everything comes back from it. But football side, do we see him being here next year?
No, I don't. Young people these days use social media for certain things, right? So we've all seen what's going on with Kyla, and I made the joke earlier on, right? There's something not quite right going on there, right? We can all agree that, right? And when you go and do something like he's obviously probably, you know, that wasn't a mistake. He just didn't think he'd get found out, I don't think. Now, that's a shame because it feels like the franchise has backed him through whatever he's gone through. If he doesn't want to be here, let's talk. You know, look, you know, you don't want to keep a player here who doesn't want to be here. We should be compensated for, you know, in my opinion. I think if you're going through something, that's absolutely fine. And, you know, I think the franchise kind of did a lot to just go, yep, not a problem. You know, we'll support you through it. Now, I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, but to me, I don't know. It felt the whole social media thing felt a little bit disloyal. It felt a bit Julio-ish.
Yeah, a bit dirty. A bit.
Yeah. It hurt a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because we love that boy. We all do. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. Because and do you know what it is? You know, you could do something really, really easy if you're him. You could come out and go, do you know what it is? I accidentally put my phone in my back pocket and accidentally hit play.
I use that one.
You could just quash that dead easily. But again, radio silence. So for me, and I think most Falcons fans are probably the same. I don't know about you. It feels like you just got to accept it. He doesn't want to be here. That's fine. That's not a problem. You'll go wherever. You'll go wherever offers the franchise who drafted you and the franchise who's helped you through your career so far and supported you last year to get the best possible. What's the word I'm looking for?
Deal.
Yeah, like compensation.
Yeah.
I think we'll be lucky to get a second at this stage. If I'm honest, I don't think we're getting a first for it. And to be honest with you, at this minute in time, if I was Terry and Arthur, I'd just go, right, okay, cool, not a problem. And do I think he succeeds elsewhere? Possibly, but
to a point, I think. I don't think he's ever going to be. I think he can be a number one, but sort of with someone else, as in like yardage wise, probably the same. Even like you have two number ones, etc. I don't think he's going to be the out and out wide receiver.
Well, he could do. I mean, I think this is the thing: is that it just needs to be dealt with now.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I think it'll be in the next couple of months easily before the draft. It would definitely be before the draft, obviously, because obviously draft picks, etc. But like Mark, you said, whatever team comes in with the best offer, that's what.
And can I just say, if that means you got the Jets, you got the Jets. If that means you got the Jags, you got the Jags. I was exactly the same with Julio. Thank you for your service, but I'm done with you now. I'll love you for what you did, but I don't have to love you for making things harder now.
I think the Julio one for me was because I was only a fan of this is only the second season. Obviously it's just finished the third season, so I didn't have that connection with him compared to other fans. I get he's one of the best, but Ridley was more since I've been there, even though he's been the last few years, it was he was drafted. I've got his signed shirt. He was a player that I like.
He was drafted to succeed Julio. We all knew that. We were surprised at the pick. I think, Liam, I don't know if you remember, but I remember sitting there going, "Oh, holy shit!" I didn't expect him to do that.
No, I mean, I was obviously, it's the worst thing in the world for me because obviously Julio was my favorite Falcon for ever, and then obviously he got me. I started supporting obviously Alabama because of who we are, because that's where I did research where he came from because he was my favorite, and that's obviously part of why I supported him. Then obviously one of my favorite receivers for Alabama was Ridley in that season, and then I on that draft night I was watching where Ridley went, just as much as who the Falcons took. Yeah. And then the Falcons took Ridley, and I obviously lost my shit. And then, and now obviously he might be the next one out of the door. But I mean, I don't know what. It's obviously just kind of what's going on sort of thing. I know we're obviously saying the players are choosing not to be there and doing all this sort of stuff, but is something we don't know about. Because obviously Julio seemed to just turn a corner quite quickly in terms of what he wanted and things like that. Ridley seems to be doing something similar. Are people falling out in the background, staff members and things like that, or is it what is it? Because
it's not great to see when your two best wide receivers leave in the space of a year. I think that's not saying that's Smith's or Terry's fault. I think Julio made his decision the end of last year. He was before we hired anyone. He Ridley, obviously, we don't really know much about that situation, but
we don't need to know the situation, right? And I think I'm not hating on Ridley. I just want to see an end to the situation because I don't want it to drag on. And I just want if it's a break, if it's a clean break we need, just make the clean break. And for me, I don't know, it just something about it just never felt right, and I I hope that some of the negative stuff that I see on the timeline isn't true. You know, like I don't want it to be just he's trying to force a move. Like I want the dude to be happy. Like I say, like I'm thank you for your service. Like if you just don't want to be in Atlanta, that's no problem. Like let's find a solution for that.
Mm.
You know, let's not hate on him for what it is. Like, you know, if he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be here. But that doesn't mean that you kind of get, as Julio found out, you don't just get to choose where you go next. You know, like not there.
For me, I just want it. You just want it to happen, don't you? Like,
yeah,
they know about. Everyone knows about his tweets. Everyone, well, the whole franchise will know about what it's like. They've probably already spoke to him. They probably already have plans in place to a point. Like they know, obviously not letting anything loose, which is fine. But all I want is the quicker it gets done, the better.
Yeah.
I don't want the franchise to get brought through the mud again, like we did during the whole Julio thing. Like it was such a time of uncertainty and division. Because it was quite divisive, wasn't it? Because everyone was like, "Oh my God, Julio was amazing. Don't want to let him go. Don't want to let him go. Oh, don't trade him. Don't trade him. He's amazing." But actually, all he wanted was more money, and he got told no because he already had another extension, another payday, and it's kind of like that's why we can't do stuff now because you got pandered to, and I just don't want that situation where we're kind of like. Just a couple of weapons short from winning the division because someone wants more money. I don't think that is the case for Ridley. I really don't. But I also just kind of, I don't want it to be I'm going to like this tweet about I want to go to the Dolphins. Why would you want to go to the Dolphins right now? Like, seriously. Like, it's, you know, they've just hired what was the OC from 49ers? Like, couldn't make Trey Lance work, so they had to make do with Jimmy Garoppolo and kind of piss-potted their way through the playoffs, but didn't quite get there. Shanahan doing what Shanahan does. Like, come on, like it's not Miami's not a massive, but again, you know, if that's the best offer, then let them offer it.
I think a second going to like. Okay, now that was loud. Second round pick. But we'll get it. So yeah, the second round pick would be. I think that's minimum we'll get, which would be good if you have 3 second round picks this year.
Yeah, I don't see us getting the first for what.
The only team that would come in for first, which I don't see anyone, would be the Eagles because they have 3. I think that's the only team because they have the 3.
If we're going to take a third, it must be a third plus a 1 the year after as well. For me, anyway. Like
yeah,
that's. Really
I think we'll definitely get a second, but obviously, like you said, it's whatever team comes with the best offer. See you later.
Well, we'll wait and see.
Before we wrap up, we'll do Super Bowl. Obviously, Matt, you said you've got plans. I think me, Danny, a couple of mates are going into Beer Keller in the middle of Manchester, which would be good because it's just full of NFL fans. So it'd be quite a good experience to have.
Yeah, I'm going to. So I've just recently started playing the game for a BFA League 2 side in Essex. So we'll be watching that at our kind of like sponsor pub in Benfleet in Essex. So and there are some large chaps like on this team that make me feel small. So who I'm really not too confident that I will be able to keep up with on the drinking front. So I'll probably die. But yeah, that's that. Looks like Liam doesn't want to give us his prediction. Oh, there he is.
Oh, looks like his connection may have gone. But no, so
so Cal, who are you taking?
I don't want the Rams due to Arsenal's owners owning them, and I don't want them to win it.
Right. Okay.
But I do think the Rams are stronger overall, like quite a bit stronger. But if the Bengals win it, how can you not want the Bengals to win it?
I mean, I genuinely have a sneaky little suspicion they might do it. I think if you've got a defense that's able to turn around 21 unanswered points against Mahomes, I think you've got something. Considering they've got Cooper Kupp on a hot streak, on a very, very deep threat. Have you got any other weapons to really shout about? OBJ, maybe. I'm still not sold that he's anything hugely special, and he's still very much riding that catch for the Giants. How many years ago? 7 years ago now.
I think he definitely improves them because he gives them another option.
Well, yeah, I mean, but would you say? I mean, the way that Kupp and Robert Woods used to work together, that it's not that relationship.
Yeah.
But I do think that they've got probably one of the best defense. Like, I think because of the Rams' defense, if they lose this, and I understand it's to a very electric offense in the Bengals. Don't get me wrong.
It will be on the offense if they lose it.
If the Rams lose this, with the defense that they have, they like 2 Super Bowl losses in 4 years? 2 years, 3 years? 3 years.
The defense last time, was it? I can't remember the score. Was it 9?
Well, it was like 12-9 or something, wasn't it? Like
the defense did the job through the game. But the thing is, for me, is the Bengals O-line is, I think Burrow's been hit over 60 times this year, which is an absolutely ridiculous amount. Like, that's ridiculous. To get to the Super Bowl and get hit so many times as well, then fair play.
Yeah. So, there's the romantic part of me that says Bengals. My head say the Rams edge it, and I mean edge it. I think it will be a close game. I think it will be won by a field goal, but
I'd love it. I want it to be the playoffs were unbelievable. Let's be honest. That's probably the best playoffs
100%.
you'll ever.
This was one of the best years for playoffs.
But that's you want that to take to the Super Bowl, and there's chances. Obviously, it might not. It could be a very low-scoring game because of the way it is. It's a Super Bowl. That's what it is. But I'd love it to just carry on that playoff thingy just for the excitement.
I mean, the Bengals haven't won this by playing conservatively.
No,
the Bengals aren't there because of it. So they won't because I don't think they can. So I think it is. I do fancy this one to be a bit of a shootout. I do, and that all lies. Like, do I think the Bengals offense can stop Cooper Kupp and OBJ? Well, if they stop Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, yeah, I reckon they probably could. But this is it. It's going to be. I can't see it being a boring Super Bowl by any stretch of the imagination. No, Bill Belichick can just like hammer down and coach and go, right, okay, well, we're just not gonna give up touchdowns. I don't think Sean McVay or the Bengals can do that.
Well, you look at, I think some of the games in the playoffs with Sean McVay, he takes risks on even challenges as well. Like there's a challenge that he made. He wasn't right, and he's just like, why has he done that? But he's still a young coach. I think he hired him when he was 30, which is absolutely ridiculous. When
madness. I mean, he's younger than me.
He's got him to 2 Super Bowls, so to be fair, you can't complain. But I think
we're in for a good one either way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I'm excited, because we've last couple of years, like COVID wise, like I've been watching it at Danny's, but this because we're going out with mates, but because we're going to a venue where it's just full of NFL fans.
Yeah.
Because obviously, because you're going to choose your side, ain't you? Like you're going to choose. Like I'm going to walk in as a Bengals fan on the night.
Oh,
I'll wear my foul, like everyone will, but you'll choose. So you'll be cheering. I'll probably cheer, like obviously not as much as the Falcons. Say the Falcons will win it or whatever, but you go. you'd be cheering for that team, and it'd be just.
So when it was Chiefs 49ers, the last year?
Year before, because I had Bucks last year.
Yeah, before, yeah. When it was Chiefs 49ers, so I went out with a friend of mine who's a mad Raiders fan, and he obviously was 49ers because the Chiefs are in their division. And I was Chiefs because fuck Kyle Shanahan. That's why. So I was up with these like Chiefs fans, like chest bumping, high fiving, and when Mahomes threw that absolute bomb to Tyreek Hill over the top, which was like a really weird route that he took. I mean, the way I celebrated, you would have thought it was the Falcons playing. It's just a great energy. So, I don't think Liam's getting back on, by the way. So maybe he needs to wrap it up.
That's fine. We'll
Go
wrap
back.
We'll wrap it up there. So we're both going for the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Gotta go for the slightly underdog. But what a story! What a story if they go on to win.
It's brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. But thanks to everyone that came on. Thanks to everyone that's listened. Thanks to everyone who's watched. We'll probably start doing these more regularly now after getting this one out of the way. Next one be. Obviously, I know the draft's another 2 and a bit months ago away, but Matt and Liam will definitely be doing a couple of shows with a lot of draft talk. We'll get a lot more guests on like we do in the off season. But thanks for listening and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.